At one point, like, Fionna, she gets fired from her job in episode 1. And the character's like, the only way you can get your deposit back is you bring back the uniform. She's like, you want the uniform? I here, get the uniform. And she just begins stripping in the middle of the city chat. It's like, whoa. And she said, the character's like, Jesus, what are you doing? Seeing her thighs and everything. She's like, yeah, just do it. Just take it. I really like that.
Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon, where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video.
We're going to go ahead, and we're going to move on to the next part of my show. And that is my review for Fionna and Cake, episodes 1 and 2. And for those that don't know, the first episode focuses on the mundane and difficult life of Fionna Campbell as she tries to navigate the unfulfilling jobs, relationships, and her sick cat Cake. While episode 2 focuses on Simon Pentecoff, formerly the Ice King from Adventure Time, years after the Adventure Time series as he grapples with his grief over the death of his fiancée and his isolation living in the Land of Ooo. I remember, watching the original short for Adventure Time over a decade ago and, keeping up with the Adventure Time series for quite a few seasons. Although I don't think I watched all of the show and the spinoffs and the films. I do consider myself a fan of the series, and I do consider the series to be like one of the best animated shows of the 2010s. I appreciated, the characters, the voice acting, the world building, and its increasingly mature tone as it, continue on. Which is why I was, happy to see, the series continue on in various spin-offs like Fionna and Cake. Now, in the original series, Fionna and Cake was the gender-bent fan fiction of the Ice King, which was like a popular series of novels in the Land of Ooo. Here, we actually have like a real Fionna and Cake, but they exist in a different dimension in which the Great Mushroom War seemingly did not occur or had not occurred yet. And though I'm sure, many are sick of the multiverse concept that has been, handled poorly as of late across numerous films and TV shows. I think it was smart to focus on a different Fionna and Cake, learning all about the magic and the fantasy that exists across the multiple universes that are established in the Adventure Time, series. It allows them to be more than just gender-bent versions of Finn and Jake, the original protagonists of the show. In the first episode, we're introduced to Fionna and Cake in almost like a dreamlike adventure that's very similar to the kind of one-offs that they did in the original Adventure Time. But we're quickly faced with reality as much as the characters are. Fionna Campbell, she's pretty much this struggling millennial, this struggling 20-something who hates her job and is living this very mundane life while dealing with an existential crisis. Her cat's sick. And she can barely afford rent, and she's just filled with so much resentment throughout this first episode. That comes across immediately. We're also introduced to gender-bent versions of numerous other characters like Lumpy Space Princess, Princess Bubblegum, and Marceline. The gender-bent version of Marceline is Marshall Lee. And I'm still surprised, Chef, still very surprised, but also still very pleased that Donald Glover has consistently voiced the character for years. I just kind of figured he'd be too busy to voice the character or want to move on to the dozen other things that, that he's currently working on, whether it be his music or his film career, or his acting career, or his writing career. But I don't know, I'm glad he's remained on and seems to, really like the property and voicing the character. The rest of the episode kind of plays out as a slice of life story. But the ending gives us a hint as to what will allow Fionna and Cake to cross over to Ooo and go on all these adventures. And again, I really enjoyed the first episode, and I think it does a great job of just kind of introducing us to the characters of Fionna and Cake and kind of what they are, what defines them, and how this, again, saying like, hey, this is not the same Fionna and Cake that we have seen in those previous kind of one-off, spin-off, almost like fan-inspired episodes, because so often, chat, like in fan culture, a lot of people do like gender-bent versions of characters from the show, whether it's turning them male or female, and they're featured in fan fiction. But to see that it just, spun off to something that became so popular, they're like, actually, there's something here. But, actually like really taking it seriously and trying to have them not just be those gender-bent versions, but, original characters in their own right with their very distinct, personalities that stand out to their, the original characters that inspired them. I think that's really cool. But again, like I said, I really enjoyed, the first episode quite a bit. And I think the animation was also very good and very wholesome, but the second episode I feel like was even better. It's focused on Simon, who of course was the Ice King. And right now he is not in a very good place in his life. He, of course, it's, it's years after the events of the original Adventure Time series. And he lives almost as like a wannabe museum piece for like gawkers to harass. Like he lives this life as like, hey, come see the man from the 20th century. And like he almost like lives in an exhibit, and that's how he's able to like support himself. And it's like really messed up and dark. But at the same time, as people are kind of like gawking at him and harassing him, mostly about like what it was like to be the Ice King all those years ago, he's still grieving, over the death of his fiancée, Betty, in the mainline Adventure Time series. And he's feeling increasingly isolated in the Land of Ooo. There are a lot of characters from the original series, in this episode, and they're older. They're much older, and they don't seem to understand what Simon is going through at this moment. Everyone from Finn, who is dealing with his own issues, and Marceline, who is more focused on her romantic relationship with Bubblegum, which is also kind of quite sad since Simon was almost like a father figure to her. Like they are just kind of unaware of like what he's going through. And just wanted to speak on, Finn's character, because yes, this is like, we do see like Finn pops up in the second episode. He's not a kid anymore. He looks like he's probably in his late 20s or early 30s at this point. He is very much kind of like he has grown into that adventure. He's all muscled, and he has like this cybernetic arm now. I mean, I know that he had a prosthetic arm, later on in the series, but now it's like he has all these different contraptions for it and uses and things. And he has this giant, blonde beard and this, luscious, blonde hair. And he's very much kind of like that classic, almost barbarian adventurer at this point. But he is having his own issues because he has not gotten over, because apparently at this point Jake the dog is dead, and he passed on some time ago, and Finn is not dealing with it in a very healthy way. So much so that he tries to do the same thing with Simon. He's like, well, this works for me. You just got to keep moving forward. Just stay busy. That's what you got to do. But he's just not dealing with his actual grief. He's almost like doesn't want to accept that like Jake is dead. Almost in the same way that Simon is like dealing with his grief for Betty and his isolation in the worst ways possible. Like, one part of the episode where they meet up at a bar, and Finn actually, he recognizes that Simon is not doing well at this point, and he wants to take him on an adventure, and it's like horrifying because Simon is very ill-suited for it. And, Finn, he's just like, well, that's what Jake and I used to do together. And then we always made it out. But you kind of notice that there are like subtle changes with the show. It's like it's a little more brutal. And like in this case with Finn taking on this adventure, it's actually quite scary. Simon almost dies like several times. He gets wounded, and it's actually like a bloody, horrific wound. It's like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And, inevitably he's not able to help Simon because he's also not able to help himself. So of course it wouldn't work out. And then there's this really sad scene where this beautiful music is playing, and like Simon makes the effort to call Marceline, and she's kind of being dismissive of him, which is even worse because that episode 2 starts out with a flashback to when he was taking care of her in the apocalypse, when she was like a little girl and alone. And, because she's busy with her own thing. She's busy with her romantic relationship with Bubblegum. And, like, she's like, oh, yeah, well, we should hang out sometime. We should catch up. So always already implying that, it's been, quite some time since they've interacted with each other. Like, she seems to be in a better place, but she's also not there for someone who clearly needs her at this moment. Simon needs his daughter, and she's not there. Also, you had these constant reminders of his life as the Ice King. And, like, people keep bringing this up to him time and time again. Like, they almost wistfully remember. It's like, remember those days when you're the Ice King? You wrote that Cake and Fionna fan fiction, right? And that's kind of like the connective tissue. He's like, I don't want to hear about it. And, like, he snaps. Like, at one point in the episode, like, he fucking snaps. And he doesn't want to hear from him. He actually makes a little girl cry. He even says, I made a little girl cry. She just wanted me to sign her copy of Fionna and Cake. I told her it was stupid, and he grabbed it from her, he throws it in the trash, and, she starts bawling. It's like, oh, my God. So he's got, like, just so many issues that he's dealing with right now, and, again, it's not in a healthy way, and the characters that we would normally like, oh, yeah, you should go to these people for help, and they just don't. They're just not able to because, one, they have their own variety of issues, or maybe they're being too selfish. So I really like that. Watching these first 2 episodes, it made me realize that the show has grown up with its audience. Already what I've kind of brought up, we're talking about like existential crises and dealing with the mundane and how we're dealing with it in a very unhealthy way in toxic relationships. It's like that's immediately at the forefront of the show. I really like that. There's also much more sexual innuendo. And, people swear and they make various references to other adult themes and content. Like at one point, Fionna, she gets fired from her job in episode 1. And the character's like, the only way you can get your deposit back is you bring back the uniform. She's like, you want the uniform? Here, get the uniform. And she just begins stripping in the middle of the city chat. It's like, whoa. And she said, the character's like, Jesus, what are you doing? Seeing her thighs and everything. She's like, yeah, just do it. Just take it, I really like that. And, Fionna, and again, it's the same voice actress. I forget the voice actress's name who voices Fionna, but she's excellent here. It's the same one, that did it in all those gender bent episodes from the original Adventure Time. Her delivery of some of her lines are absolutely amazing. Like, she goes through her own quest in a way in episode 1, but it's a very mundane quest. Basically, her trying to take care of her cat Cake, basically, trying to help her because she apparently might be sick. And she goes through this like whole segment with this one character, but then the character that she thinks that this person is turns out not to be. And she's like, God damn it. She just leaves. And so I kind of like that. It's like, yes, I felt that way before. So, scenes like that are great. I love that because they realized, the audience that's still probably watching all this stuff is the audience that watched it before, but they're going to be much older now. They're going to be making more adult themes. They're going through a lot of changes physically, emotionally, psychologically. They're dealing with a lot of the problems that, Fionna and Cake and Simon are dealing with. And so let's make sure that our show is matured for our audience. I really respect that. I really admire that. I love it when like a series or a continued universe like does that. It's very similar to something like Batman the Animated Series and how through the rest of the DCAU, it's like they made sure to, hey, let's, the people that watched that show in the 90s are watching all the way into the 2000s and mid-2000s, so let's age it up appropriately. I think that's great. I love that about, obviously, that, and they're doing exactly that here. And so it's like, oh, this is just so cool. And we're seeing our characters that a lot of people grew up watching. Now it's in different circumstances, and they've changed, and in some cases, not always for the better. In some cases, they might have gotten worse, and that's like, oh, there's a sense of tragedy to that, right? I think it's like a really great start to the series, and it makes me excited, to see the shared adventure of self-discovery for Fionna, Cake, and Simon. And, and maybe together they can find that happiness and deal with their respective issues. It's like, even though these first 2 episodes seem to be very disparate from each other, it seems to be very standalone, the episode 2 the very end of episode 1 and very end of episode 2 like connect each other and kind of explains like, oh, this is how these characters of Fionna, Cake, and Simon, which I think he should be part of the title, is Fionna and Cake and Simon, are going to go on like a journey of self-discovery and hopefully find themselves and hopefully find the thing that makes them happy, but they have to do this together. And I really like that. And so I know this is going to be like 10 episodes. I think they're already going to do like a second season, right now. But so far at the start, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was awesome that they are, have aged this series up for viewers and are leaning into the maturity of it and aren't afraid to deal with a lot of dark concepts, and elements that all define our lives. And so that was really cool. I mean, I already know, I've always known that because I watch Adventure Time, I've known they always dealt with that, but to see them like really leaning into that now more than ever, I think is really reassuring. And I think it already sets up the series to be something very special, other than just being a gender bent version of Finn and Jake. Like, these characters already feel like very different, and they're going to go through, I imagine, a profound amount of growth. So I'm very excited for this show. And I don't know, I guess, they've released like 2 episodes. I guess they're going to be releasing 2 episodes per week. So yeah, I guess maybe this might be like a consistent review series. I'll see, kind of like how this does. And if you guys want me to keep watching this show, or maybe I can do like a end of the series wrap up, eventually when all the episodes are done, at least for season 1. But let me know. But yeah, so far, really loving the show. Highly recommend it. Especially, obviously if you're a fan of Adventure Time. I think that's the one thing I got to say, before kind of moving on to the next topic. If you have not watched Adventure Time before and like consistently across like multiple seasons, I didn't watch all of it, but I did watch enough to understand like, okay, what's going on and things, right? If you have no experience with Adventure Time, then you're going to be really, really confused. I feel like, wait, who's this character? Who are they referring to? Who died? And there's like definitely some deep cut, callbacks to certain things, and definitely big plot elements that happened in either the main series or some of the other spinoffs or like movies that they've done, kind of made, like the VOD movies. That's definitely going to be, I think, a little confusing for people. So go into this with that in mind, that, okay, you need to have a good portion of knowledge of Adventure Time and the characters and what kind of has happened to them throughout the events of the show, because it definitely leans into this. This is very much a show that's being made for older Adventure Time fans that grew up with the series, but we'll inevitably see. But I do hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as I am so far. How about you guys? What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Fionna and Cake? Let me know.
I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.